Hi, I'm Marcin. I'm working on ZkSync, and today I have a very tough task. The very tough task is giving the presentation in parallel with donuts and actually making sure that you are entertained, that you will learn something from this. Originally, when Ben reached out, he mentioned, come on, Marcin, you're going to explain a little bit how Interop works. It's going to be like a deep technical presentation. I said, fantastic. What time? He said, like, yeah, 3 p.m.-ish, underground for ETHDenver. If you've ever given a presentation yourself, you know that this is the toughest crowd. They have so many other things they can do, so the fact that you showed up, I'm very happy, unless you just fall asleep here, so welcome. So in this talk, we're going to talk a little bit about Interop. We're going to talk how it should like. We're going to go into the future, talking about all the beautiful things that will show up. And then we'll talk about incentives. We'll talk about realities of, how software is easy and humans are hard. So imagine we are in the year 2030, 5 years from now. GTA 6 is about to come, for real this time. Ethereum, I will not spoil that, let's wait 5 years. And now, imagine you're sitting here in 5 years, listening to some presentation that a Frostbit is launching. A new cool L5 network, come on, we're gonna have L5 networks by then, right? It's cutting edge, best in class innovation, blah, blah, blah. You're falling asleep, regular stuff. And then they announce ice drop. Airdrops are for now, ice drops is the future, only for cool people. Okay, so now it got your attention. You take your iPhone 22, of course with MetaMask, because maybe not. And then you figure out, holy shit, how do I get there? How do I start using this new network to classify for this ice drop? Of course, your wallet does not support this new network. You're probably using account abstraction, at least I hope. But then you will not be cool on that place. Your accounts are spread over all the other networks. You can send the funds using intents. Hopefully by then, across V7, we'll be providing this almost instantaneously. But what about NFTs? And again, all of this will work assuming liquidity is there. So the prediction I'm making here, if we don't do anything, we're going to end up in a world that will look very similar to today, where, yes, there will be another network launching, for whatever reasons, but the pain, the amount of work you have to do to start using it will be still very high, unless we do Interop. And then we'll have a question, can devs do something? The good news is we are 5 years before this moment, so let's see what we can do. Now, when I was creating this presentation, I had exactly this dilemma. My default mode would be to go deep into technical issues, to go and show you all the technical details using the similar nice XKCD style things, showing you how, in my case, ZkSync, everybody is shilling their own thing, right? How it works, how we have messages, calls, how we combine these things together, how we use different types of chains, how we use different types of proofs. We will be talking a lot about Merkle proofs, trade-offs, all the technical details, aliased accounts. And by the way, if someone is interested, I'm happy to explain all of this. I'm just aware that, at 4 p.m., the mind is just working a little bit slower than it should be. TLDR, I would be talking about all this amazing future that will be possible if you just, follow the given framework. And then I came to the summary slide. And what became real is this would be one part, one interop showing coordination between one set of teams, but trying to create something across others, trying to create actually common interface between chains is not really a technical problem, it's a human problem. Our incentives are very tricky in this business. And some people here know it very well. You might not speak about this out loud, but you know it very well that we are in this business where we're kind of together, but not fully aligned. We are working to improve the Ethereum, but at the same time, we want to move it a little bit in our direction. This is normal. There's no point to hide that. It's our incentives, we are driven by our incentives. One example of the recent success, we were able to align actually something across Ethereum, was the intense ERC. Success. This is the thing that also Luca was talking about. We have an ERC that is talking about intense framework. Sorry, intense interface. It took a tremendous amount of effort from across team. I was really impressed by them going step by step to discuss with all these teams, convincing them to join. But this was something that's actually on a very trivial level. Meaning, most of the L2s, what they had to do to say that they join is literally nod, post a tweet. So, if such a small dedication requires so much human work, we really have to think about what can we do with the community to really start talking about some other basic ERCs. Because if you participate in any other ERC discussions, especially on the L2's rollup, they are not going well. They are literally, unfortunately, going in circles. For months, we're discussing things that would be considered simple. From basic things like how the chain address should look like. Should it be user at chain, or maybe chain at user? It's good to have these discussions, but the problem is that we are slowly running out of time. If we don't do these things, all the superchains, elastic chains, whatnot, they will change the interoperability into intraoperability. These things will become basically a clusters, a walled gardens. And all these interops are coming. These are the protocol level interops, meaning the superchain was one example, the elastic chain from ZkSync, the AG layer. When they launch, they will be very hard to change. Meaning the incentives will be even more in a different direction. And as you know, changing the protocol is a multi-month, multi-year something process. Of course, there's a hope that maybe Intense can fix everything. Why not? But the way to talk about this, the way to think about it is like Intents are like email, and protocols are like packages. At the end of the day, you need both. You heard the example that Luca was saying. Even in case of Intents, the final settlement has to travel somewhere. The actual assets have to be moved over the regular thing. And if we don't do anything, the future is going to look like this. If you're in the same area, fantastic. Same day, within seconds, your package will be delivered from one chain to another. If you're not, it will be very expensive or potentially impossible. So, TLDR, if we don't do anything, we are going towards walled garden story. We're going towards the place where, again, within, it's cheap and fast. In between, across is a different name, is expensive, slow, and in some cases simply impossible. What will be the effect for this? This would mean that even people who are working on Intents, suddenly we have to support different types of message passings, depending on which chains they collaborate to. Many cases that we're not even thinking about today would simply be impossible. Because the fact that, hey, your contract is on one chain, my contract is on this chain, these contracts cannot talk to each other anymore, or it's too expensive. And the worst part is that we will start creating anti-incentives for new developers, for new projects to join Ethereum. Why would you come to Ethereum if by coming in you're only sharing, you only have access to part of the walled garden? You might as well be an L1. So, to sum it up, my kind of call to action is to really think about how can we prioritize these basic building blocks, these basic ERCs. And here, to be fair, I see positive movement, like a lot of effort also from Ellie, from Espresso, from also in EF. Josh, whatnot, it really starts moving, but we have to really speed this up. Because at the end of the day, We have to get out from the current maxima, because right now we are exactly in the Nash equilibrium, where every cluster rollup is pushing in their own direction, and they're going fast, ourselves included. And if we don't do this, we're going to end up in this scenario we're talking about. At the end of the day, in my opinion, the scale Ethereum is not only the one that can have 10,000 TPS on 100 identical chains. The secret here is that you actually have these diverse rollups that actually differ. Because this means that you have different use cases on different rollups that can kind of collaborate together, rather than identical copies that simply try to move traffic or steal traffic from each other. Let's do it, folks, to make sure that in 5 years, at Denver 2030, when Frostbite launches, you'll be like, poof, done. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a few questions. Well, I'll ask a question. Right.
Go for it.
So, I mean, just to summarize here, like getting out of those, in your opinion, to summarize what you said, like what do you think are the most important, like what are two things that the basic building blocks that we need to focus on?
Right. Actually, 3 things. So first, we need to get chain addressing. I mean, the fact that we don't have it right now, it's like almost insult. The second thing is really we need to have a good ERC around how the message format looks like, because we couldn't even agree on that, right? The next thing is almost like on top of this when we're talking about, remote calls. This would be like the first ERC, but, being able to remotely call something and have the same interface to do that.
And what is the primary advantage of having this interface?
So the way to think about it is like if you have a different interfaces, suddenly at the very basic thing, you have to think about implementing different scenarios, right? So suddenly if you imagine having n different interfaces, you suddenly have n times m combinations, all the libraries become more fatty, all the assumptions.
Primarily software.
I think everybody a little. The way to think about it is like the biggest wallets, the biggest libraries will just support maybe 1 or 2, and it starts becoming like a BD game of, hey, can you support my thing?
All right. Any other questions from the audience? Yep. Benedict. Drew.
Or that basically just, within a smart contract, I can say, chain A dot X is X. Is it the address X dot chain A, or is it chain A dot X?
So it's a user, but it's a very good question. It's like, how do you uniquely identify an address on a given chain? 0xabc on Arbitrum. How can you put this in a single string? Yeah.
I feel like there would be no one who disagrees with you, but I'm curious if you think this is just like a structural problem with how we make decisions, or what we should do about it.
I think this is partially a structural problem, how we do it, because it's everybody's like supporting it, but just a little bit. It's like this is the local Nash equilibrium. Everybody's like, yes, but some devs should do something. And the question is like, no one says which devs.
All right. Thank you very much, Marcin.